Hey there, everybody. Wayne Defrancesco here. Welcome to WayneDefrancesco.com. And today we're gonna take a look at the swing of the great Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones retired from golf in 1930 after winning the Grand Slam, which at that time was the British Open, U.S. Open, British Amateur, and U.S. Amateur. Jones won 7 professional majors and 6 amateur majors, and ranks as one of the great players of all time. His swing was noted for its fluidity, and you'd have to call it somewhat of not a modern type swing, in that the lower body movement is much more free than is generally used now. In fact, if we compare Jones to Ben Hogan, we would see that the major difference would be in the lower body action. But certainly, if you have followed my swing analysis videos, what we're going to see with Jones, surprisingly enough, is lots of the same general ideas that I point out a lot in great ball strikers. So let's take a look. We'll look at him from the front. Footage. This is back in the 1920s, and it's just pretty cool to have this film that if we get enough shots of it, we can find a couple to draw a few lines. Cameras that don't move around. So this camera's a little bit high up in the air, but it's fixed, and we can get a nice shot of Jones from the front here. This might appear to be Jones started playing in more exhibitions after he retired. This might be one of them, so this might be a little bit later, in the 30s maybe. But one of the interesting things here in the takeaway, you'll see the shaft is going to bend a bit back. So this would be what I would term a dragging type takeaway, where the hands aren't involved. This is an upper trunk movement. The club is resting on the ground, almost stuck in the grass, and when Jones moves, the club head stays, and he moves the handle more so than he does the club head, thus the dragging of the handle first and then the bending of the shaft. It also showed you the flexibility of the shafts they're using in those days. That certainly wouldn't happen now. So when he gets this start, the club swings away and gets quite a bit of stretch to it, but he had quite active wrist, so you can see here that the club is setting to about 90 here as the left arm gets parallel to the ground, or even more, actually more. So when his arm is here, there goes the club, well cocked. Now, interesting to note, in most modern players right about now, you would see that the knees wouldn't move very much more than this. The left knee might move a little more, but in Jones's swing, he would let the right leg just twist and straighten right up. Also, note the feet, well turned out on both feet, especially the right, almost more than the left. So, but also note that he didn't slide himself out of the box to the right, and he also lowered a little bit. So that's something that I like to point out, that is common amongst good ball strikers, is the general lowering of the head. So let's draw the lines again. So I do this top of the head. I want to see the raising and lowering, sides of the head, and then the sides of the hips. So take a look again. So I would say if you look at that hip action, that's pretty close to 90 degrees of hip movement. You will never see that these days. Now the left heel will come up in some players, but you will never see that much hip rotation in the backswing. Club well past parallel, but note that the hands are still to the side of his head. They're not way behind him. So the right arm is still in position to come back down. And like I noted before, his head is definitely lowering. Now, in the forward motion, you'll see that the weight begins to shift off of the right leg into the left, and he achieves a substantial lateral movement, which is another hallmark of good players. His head doesn't move out of the box. Another item. And one of the things about picking up the left heel that is misunderstood by most people is that the best players who lifted the heel put it back down almost before the arms started to move. So that heel is on the ground right there, and the club is at parallel. So it's a timing maneuver. It wasn't necessary to lift it up, allowed him to twist around a little more. But putting that thing back down gave him a great sensation of timing his swing. So you'll see that the hips make a generally large forward movement while the shoulders remain turned, and that's the sequence where the back muscles are being engaged. So the heel comes right back down, and you can see that the weight is deep in the foot because it's the front of the foot that's twisting around now, not the heel. And if we watch the head movement again, there's the second lowering. And then as he hits it, you know, as a lot of great players did, Byron Nelson, Tony Lima, up into the modern era where you see guys drop their head like Hunter Mahan and Jeff Overton through the ball. Gary Player did the same thing. Why is that? Well, you know, to me it just gives a sensation of maintaining that side bend and feeling like they're staying in the shot, coming from underneath and around it a little bit more. And then another hallmark, as the left hip reaches its fully left position, you'll see that the left arm is down about 45 or so. Now, watching the follow-through where his belt line will be right up against that point. So, great drive with the glute muscles not to back the hips up. So he finishes right up against that line. And if you draw the line up from the waist, of course, in front of the nose. So, a lot of great stuff going on. If you look at the tempo, powerful. With all that leg movement, you're going to see the timing at the top look fairly smooth. He needs, like couples would say, he needs time to route and get the club back. But certainly snapping the thing through. I'm sure Jones hit the ball really far. Alright, now this swing isn't in particularly great focus, but we can watch. Now, I'm guessing here that this camera shot was probably just after the club started back, so I'm going to draw the shaft playing up from where the driver would probably be behind the ball. And again, surprisingly enough, this footage is fairly stable, so we can draw these lines and they would actually show us something. So let's take a look here. Now, if we look at the takeaway and we draw the line here, this is going to look as much like Matt Kuchar as anybody. So you'll see that from where I had that original shaft plane to here. This is very close to a one plane half backswing. Now, even if you'll note the hip action with all that hip twist, you will still see that the hip movement, the leg movement, is what I would call symmetrical, in that the right knee is back about the same amount as the left knee is forward. So if we look at these two spaces here, I don't like to see the right knee stay on the line and the left knee go forward. To me, that will throw the body out of balance. So here we can see the belt buckle almost looking back at the camera, and we saw that before. That was almost 90 degrees of movement. So the club is crossing the line at the top. It's pretty hard not to cross the line when the club wraps around that low to the ground with that much hip rotation. So here we are at the top. And here's something I've been talking about just recently, and I find it to be very interesting in watching the movement of the grip handle. In order to get the arms back in front of the rib cage with clearance on the way down, watch where the grip goes. It's going to come right down that high line toward the ball. That first move is not dropping the hands at all. In fact, it's the opposite. It's out. You'll see that the right elbow is also coming in, which gives the forearm a tilt in this direction from where it was. So the elbow is coming in, tilting the forearm back, and you'll see now that the right arm can be fully in front of the body. So this is a move that's massively misunderstood in golf. Hands are not dropping, they're coming out. If you look at Hogan, if you look at Snead, you'll see the same thing. Now, another topic of interest, that's something I like to talk about a lot, is the hips being in the box. Well, let's check out Jones. Look at his hips. You won't see hips anymore in the box than that. It's perfect. So nice depth, and wheels around in front. And then another factor that I really like to harp on, so you kind of start to see why these guys are so good. Watch the approach. Look where the hands are. So we'll draw it. Remember where they started here. We'll take it back, and look where they end up. And look where the shaft is coming around. So my theory there is that entering or approaching from the shaft plane, given that the address position is fairly normal, and exiting in an arc along the shaft plane is the easiest way to square the face. Jones had a nice free wrist rotation through the ball. Wasn't necessarily trying not to roll the thing over. The thing rolled over pretty good, but coming in that low, as he hits the ball, you'll see that the wrist, it's kind of hard to tell. There's some other shots might be able to see it a little better, where as he comes into the ball, you'll see that the wrist action is pretty forward. Now with the iron, you'll see that Jones' approach was definitely more on the ball, and he adjusted nicely, of course, with the driver. There's the iron approach, so you can see the nice forward lean in the divot. And you see the right arm tucked very nicely inside the rib cage there. And then if we go to an iron shot from behind, you'll note that as the hands are more forward, they would be going around to the left in order to hit down on the ball. But really evident is the way the club goes behind him in the backswing and then wheels around and gets back in front of him on the forward swing, which gives him that nice leftward movement through the ball. Alright, so this swing of the great Bobby Jones, again, a lot of the same factors that you see in a lot of the great players here in Jones as well. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you.